We are going to pass the basket, but we also have giving online. And so what I want to do before we pass this around is take a moment, now that I've already made Fran stand up, and talk through with you guys. In fact, you can sit, Fran. It's going to probably take me a minute. For you guys who are our key parts of the church, kind of take you through in detail what's going on with all of this stuff. Many of you have heard some of it, but we'll just kind of take you through the whole thing in the last few weeks here. We're going on a little journey together. It'll be fun. We're going to talk about sewage. Everyone loves that. And so about 3 weeks ago, you guys might have remembered 3 Sundays ago when you came to church, the bathrooms downstairs were out of order. What happens is all of our sewage, this is such a lovely topic. I hope you've already had dinner. All of our sewage goes out a pipe that goes out in the basement. That pipe has a crank on it that opens and shuts a valve because Millvale floods. And this is an old way of dealing with that because you shut it, and then if the sewer floods, that water doesn't come back through and out places in your basement, in theory. And what happened was that valve shut, and then the crank broke. So we couldn't open it again. Now, we have a bypass that takes some of our sewage and theoretically backflowed sewage into a cistern, which has 2 giant pumps which pump it out through another pipe that's much higher up, close to street level, which is why the upstairs toilets still work, because they create enough pressure to where it goes into the cistern and yada, yada, yada. But the downstairs ones don't really work in that very well. So we were going to get that fixed, so we brought a plumber out. For the plumber to diagnose the problem, they had to open a pipe that is after that valve. So you have sewage coming out, you have valve, and then you have pipe that hasn't been opened in 60 years. Well, he opened 60 years said pipe and could not reattach the cap to it. So what happened was when we had a bad storm when I was out of town, the sewage came through, hit that valve, which it could not get past because it was stuck closed, and then it merrily made its way up and into our basement, as water does. Water is going to go wherever it can. And so we had about 4 inches of sewage in the basement. So at that point, Fran, because I was on vacation, we contracted a company, Disaster Relief Services, to come out and clean the basement to remove the sewage, because none of you want to come to church if there's sewage. And so that happened, but that didn't happen until the day before church last Sunday, and the building still smelled horrifyingly bad. And so we canceled church, which is weird, and I hate doing it, but we had to do it. And with that, we have about a $10,000 insurance policy on that sort of stuff. Cleaning up the damage cost us $6,000-ish. And then the rebuild of the stuff down there is going to cost us between $3,000 and $4,000. It doesn't include any of the stuff that was damaged. As I mentioned this morning, a lot of the stuff that was damaged is stuff we don't actually use. So it's not heartrending. Some of it I'm actually glad this gives me an excuse to dispose of it. But with that in mind, we also still have to repair that valve. And that is going to cost us about $4,000. So that's why we're taking a special offering. I don't typically like doing this. People think pastors just want people's money, but I actually hate doing this sort of thing. But for those of us who are fully committed people at Element Church, sometimes God does call us to give a little, to give above and beyond. And I know some of you have already done that with the kids ministry, so I don't want you to feel like I'm trying to beat you over the head with this. But if you feel like God's leading you, and if it's something that you can do financially, we do appreciate it, and it will help us get through this extremely expensive season in the middle of the summer. And any pastor can tell you the summer is the worst time to have this happen, because your giving is already usually about 60% of what it is the rest of the year during the summer, because people, if they don't come to church, they don't give, and a lot of people during the summer are on vacation and whatnot. So it's kind of a perfect storm of bad timing. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and take a quick offering. Again, you can feel free to give online to this. If you can't afford it, I'm not trying to get anybody, but we do want to give an opportunity for people to give into this. So pray with me. God, we know in even difficult situations you're in control. That you have resources and things available that we don't even know about. So God, I do trust you with all of this, and we trust you with all of this as a church. And I thank you for the generosity of people who are able to give above and beyond to help us meet this need. And so I thank you for them, and I thank you for whatever it is through all of this that you want to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Yeah, if you give online, put a little note in that it's for this, and that will be helpful to us. There's like a comment box. There's a way to set up different accounts on that, but our church database system is very difficult to use, and I couldn't figure it out today. Well, with that in mind, if I could invite up Pastor Craig, Pastor Tim, and the Right Reverend Santoro. We'll get your guys' mics on for you. And your on switch is on the bottom of that one. You may have to twist that little thing there. Hand me my iPad, please, babe. I'm controlling the slides, so that's why I'm rocking a variety of technological devices here. What we wanted to do today is talk through a little bit about at Element Church, what we see going on during the next 6 months, and kind of talk through, especially with some of you guys who are key people. I wanted to make sure that we discuss a little bit on how I do church and kind of refresh that a little bit, and what we do and we don't do as a church, because that really helps define for us, hey, here's what we're going to do to move forward. And the first thing that I wanted to just rehash and read to you guys real quick is really kind of what our core values are as a church. It's kind of fun because we rewrote these a little bit about 6 months ago, but these are no different than the 12 core values that were used when Element Church was started 6 years ago. But we kind of refined them down to 7. And one of those, and if you're here for the new series, you would have heard these already, but what we love people when they least expect it and they least deserve it. So that's on how we treat people. We give Jesus our very best. That doesn't mean that we always can do things perfectly, but when we do things, we do them excellently, and we give it our very best for Jesus. We're a community of second chances, community of grace. With that, although we're a community of second chances, we also believe in radical truth-telling, but with grace. We believe in telling people the truth and speaking truth into people's lives. You can get too much grace and not tell anybody the truth. And that's not a good thing either. We believe that we're empowered by God's Spirit for his mission. So we are a Pentecostal church, but we believe that the purpose for God's Spirit in our lives is for Jesus' mission and not for the glorifying of any people. We are a church that embraces change that God brings us so that we can show people Jesus. As it turns out, if you look at 2,000 years of church history, the church has changed its structure and how it does things every now and then. The Orthodox haven't. They're pretty much the same as they were. But the church changes, and we embrace those changes because they let us show people Jesus. We believe that God uses relationships to transform our lives. And lastly, we expect that much of what God gives us is to give away. And we personify that in how we budget. One thing I always point out is about 20% of our budget is allocated to go outside of our church. It goes to outreaches, it goes to community stuff, it goes to missions, it goes to all sorts of things. We take a lot of what we get and we put it outside of our walls. Many of you know that the Vault is actually a pastor's office for a pastor who doesn't go to our church. He's not one of our pastors. He's also not even in our denomination. But he's a pastor who is a church planner who needed space, and so we said, you know what, we believe that this is Jesus' building, and so we're going to be generous with what Jesus gives us. Those are our core values, but those kind of go into a fun little funnel that we have, which is these key things that we do as a church and what the end result is. And so we're going to talk through some of these together. We're not going to talk to all of them, but a couple of these different things we're going to touch bases on a few different things. But it's kind of how we want to reach people and reach our community and the end result that we want as a church. So fun, right? I made a triangle. That was harder than you think, by the way, in Keynote. The triangle wasn't hard, but getting the lines just right, so what's the first thing that we do as a church? We do big events. Who's excited about the Backpack Block Party? Woo, yeah, that's good. I got something out of that.
Are you all volunteers? Is your name on the board?
Maybe we should take a break and let them go over and fill out the board.
So there is the board over there if you're not. So we're really excited about a lot of the big events we have coming up. Backpack Block Party is going to kind of come and go here really quick. But as we're looking into the next 6 months, we have 2 more big events that we're really kind of excited about. One of those is when we roll around, every fully devoted follower of Jesus' favorite holiday is Halloween, right? It's one of my favorites because it is a very, very easy one to expose people to church and to show them that Jesus loves them. And so this year we're going to take elements on a variety of things through the years. We've done different trunk or treats, different carnival things. At Mars Hill, we had a Halloween carnival we did every year. We're going to put those together here at Element Church and throw a big party for our community and have costume contests and a bounce house. And, we're kind of familiar with that sort of process. It's going to be a whole lot of fun, and it's going to be here on our property. Some of it will be outside, some of it will be inside, and we'll definitely have a rain plan. I think it's rained every Halloween for the last 100 years in Pittsburgh. You got to have a little bit of contingency there. But we're really excited about that, and we're really excited about Christmas Eve, which is a really big deal in the church. Christmas Eve is difficult at church plants, because nobody has a tradition of going to your church at Christmas Eve. And a lot of people have traditions of going other places. Our challenge as fully devoted people in the church is to say, how can we prioritize Christmas Eve at Element and use that as an opportunity to invite people to church who wouldn't usually go. But we do a Christmas Eve candlelight service. It's going to be a lot of fun, and that's going to be a really great thing. I also would like to do something with our outside area and decorating on Christmas Eve to have a really great place for family photos. I think we could make a temporary winter wonderland and have a lot of fun with it. So we're going to have that coming up as well. So we do big events, right? We do them. What's the point? We could just do big events. But so could the Shaler Area Rotary, which is good people. I'm not trying to hate on them. They're great. They can do big events. The community library does big events. Lots of people do big events. We do big events for a very simple reason. We do them to connect people in to our weekend services. So as leaders, we're looking at ways when we do these events, how can we tie them back into church? Like the Backpack Block Party is a real easy one. You know what we do? We put church invites in backpacks. We hand church invites to parents. I'm not even subtle about it. Hey, you're here. You should come to church. So we want to connect people back into our weekend services. As it turns out, the church does have an ulterior motive. And it's not something I really apologize about. We want people to come to Jesus. So we do that. But we do big events to tie people into weekend services. So weekend services are obviously another thing that the church does, right? They're a big deal. We come together, we worship. Scripture talks about that. I think it's kind of a big deal. The church has done that for 2,000 years. I don't think we're gonna think that we're not gonna stop doing that. When I think about weekend services, like one of the things that really the core value that jumps out to me there is that we give Jesus our very best. And that's something I'm really passionate about, especially with Sunday. We've had guests, like new people, almost every single Sunday this summer. We've had new people come in. We've had several guests who we've seen multiple times now. I think more than half of our guests have returned multiple times that we've had this summer. I think one of the reasons that happens is because when they come in here, it's a warm, it's a welcoming place, and it's not crazy. They don't come in and it's absolute chaos. Sometimes it feels like that to us, but we hide it pretty well from people who don't know any better. We give Jesus our very best, and I think that's going to continue to be our challenge. And as we're going to talk about teams in a little bit, but as we're all part of different teams here in the church, we want to continue to look at like how do we continue to improve what we're doing? How do we give Jesus our very best so that when people come, there's nothing in the way between that person coming into our church, having an amazing experience, and getting to hear about Jesus? Because it doesn't take much for people for something to happen to someone, and then they've emotionally cut themselves off, and then whatever could have been spoken to them, there's walls there. And so we want to look at how can we take those barriers away. And sometimes it's silly things. I know there's some people here who think I'm insane having signs that point to kids ministry in the bathrooms. But for some people, hey, that sign tells me where I need to go. That's really important to them. Greeters are really, really important. Somebody smiles at somebody. And for all of us who are sitting here right now, we're all greeters, right? If there's someone who's come into church and you don't recognize them, it's a great time to smile and say hi. You don't have to like overwhelm them and make them scared of you, but it's definitely. I remember, and I think I might have told the story to you guys before. Me and Aaron, I think we'd been married for about 2 years, and we had got a Sunday off, which was weird when you worked at a church. But we took a Sunday off. We were on vacation, and we went to a church about an hour away, and it was a church plant that was about 8 years old. We went to that church. We sat down. We were there for the whole service, including a greeting time, and we got up and left, and nobody said hi to us. Not a single person. We were obviously new. We sat by ourselves. Nobody said hi to us, and that's a bad place for a church to be. So we want to give Jesus our very best in our weekend service. Something you're going to see changing with that is kind of some of the stuff with Guest Central. I know you were going to talk a little bit about that, P. Craig.
Yes, I was. Thank you. Anyways, Guest Central, if you don't know, is that little kiosk thing over in the back corner, which we are going to be developing more. It kind of doesn't have an identity right now. It's kind of become a catch-all for some stuff. So we're going to be working on creating more of an identity for that area, and also looking to have that manned every single Sunday. For Guest Central, it's more than just that one spot too. As Pastor Erik was talking about, it's greeting, it's everything else, it's hospitality. I mean, when someone walks in a church, that's our first opportunity for them to get connected. And Guest Central is a way for them to learn more about the church and for us to get their information. But it first starts when they walk through the door and are greeted, with that smiling face and things. And I kind of want to echo what Pastor Erik was talking about with the guests. My sister and my niece have visited the church multiple times, and a lot of people don't always recognize them. But that was one thing that they talked about to me, is how welcoming they were. But, people didn't realize who they were, and they welcomed them as a first-time guest, and they actually enjoyed that. They thought it was really, really nice to have that happen. So we do that as a group, but we're going to try and get better about getting information in our guests' hands and making sure that they're getting connected to other areas of our church, because the Guest Central is pretty high on our funnel, and we want to keep moving people down towards the goal of being fully devoted.
Yeah, cool. So, and Craig, one of the things that he's going to be helping me with now that he's, sorry, it's pulling off my head. Now that he's able to have a little bit more time for those sort of things, is he's going to be helping us with kind of getting that area a little bit better, and with a couple of the teams that are involved in that. The one thing that we're going to change is we're going to start referring, and this is, I guess, how it used to be at Element, and it changed. And so greeters, ushers, hospitality people, welcome center, or guest central, that's another nomenclature we're trying to change wording-wise. Used to be called service hosts, and I think we're going to be going back to that. Now, there's different roles in a service host. Some service hosts are ushers. Some service hosts are greeters. Some are hospitality workers. But we're just going to call them all service hosts, so I can only have to make one sort of name badge. Yeah, see, that's my motive. But it also simplifies things, and it gets away a little bit from what's a little more church speak with different things. So we're moving back to calling those groups service hosts. But yeah, so Guest Central is kind of the third thing on the stuff we do as a church that's really important. And Craig's going to be helping us with that. And again, there is multiple teams there. If you're not on one of those teams and you want to be, again, you can always let us know. The neat thing about most of the teams involved in Guest Central is those are teams where you don't miss church, right? Because some teams, if you volunteer for that, you're going to miss part of church. Like kids ministry is one of those. But being a greeter for a Sunday is you show up a little bit early, and then you do it, and then you're in church like anyone else. So it's a really easy thing for people to serve in. So our next little trip down the triangle of happiness here, things we do, is a little guy called Element Next. And so who here has ever done a church membership class? That's exciting, right?
That's 3 hours of my life.
Church membership at one of my old churches was 3 weeks of like 3 nights a week and 2 hours a night. Oh, it was long. Oh, man. I don't know about that.
If you survive the class, you could be part of the church.
Oh, man. And then I don't know what a member even could do that anyone else couldn't. It's killing me here. Sorry. So we want Element Next to be more like, and our next budget is going to be life groups, and we'll talk a little about life groups. But we want Element Next to be a little bit more of a pre-life group. We want to give people, we want to do something for people who are newer, who have been through kind of our guest stuff. They've come and they've done all that good stuff, but now they want to get a little more connected to the church. And we want to put our membership stuff in that, but also have it be a little bit more introduction to our church, to Christianity, to Jesus. We're looking at a few different things for that, but we want it to be something that's either before the service or after the service, so it's an easier commitment level for people, because life groups is a whole nother step of commitment, right? Because you go from, I go to church on Sunday, to I do church on Sunday and another day of the week. And that for a lot of people is a larger step to take in their spiritual growth. This will be fun. What are the 3 T's of being fully devoted to Jesus? Oh, go for it. Boom. That's beautiful. I love it. I've started to say that enough. So that time fully devoted to Jesus, that's where life groups gets people. But that there's a certain sort of trepidation to that smaller group for some people. Some people like smaller groups better. But for some, it's actually a little more difficult. And so Element Next, we want it to be a recurring thing that's a smaller group of people as we have guests coming through. It's another step through them growing in the church. And one thing I want to kind of point out about all these different things as people come through is every different place, as a guest comes to our church, they should encounter a shepherd. Somebody who's there to guide them to what their next step is. So it may be when a new person gets here that their first shepherd is a greeter or one of our service hosts over in the Welcome Center. He's like, hey, welcome. It's really great to have you here. We're looking forward to seeing you next week. And then they come next week like, oh, it's awesome. That's good to see you again. Can I give you a quick tour around the building? And they build a connection with that person who, after a few weeks, is like, hey, you really should do Element Next, and hands them off to that next shepherd who's doing that. And then after the Element Next, that person will be like, hey, if you've had a great time here, you really should join, Fran's life group here. You live in Millvale, Fran's life group's in Millvale. And that shepherd hands them off to another shepherd, someone else who's going to guide them on their spiritual journey. And so everyone really, as we serve on teams, in some way or another, you're a shepherd of someone, which is really how the church is supposed to be. It's not just supposed to be me or Craig or Tim or Frank. Our friend. It's supposed to be all of us engaging and moving people toward being fully devoted to Jesus. So that's our goal for Element Next. We're still kind of working on how exactly we want that to work. Kind of our goal is that we have a plan and that we're beginning to do this by the end of this 6-month period. I tried something early on, but what I tried really isn't going to work because it was me doing it. And for me to do something Sunday morning before church is impossible. There's too many interruptions, and it did not work. And fortunately, it was me and Walt's easygoing. Walt's also been through our membership stuff twice. So after Element Next, the next thing that we do as a church is we do life groups. So right now we have 5 life groups. We have a Millvale life group. We have a women's life group, a men's life group, which meets once a month. That's actually this Thursday here at the church. We have an under 40 life group, which meets at my house in Lawrenceville. And we have a crafting group on Sundays. Wait, what am I saying? It's once a month on Saturdays. So Fran's actually one of our life group leaders. I thought you would talk about life groups for a little bit.
Yeah, to me, life groups is ends up being one of the cores of a church and the building block of a church, because, our church at this point is small. We have enough, camaraderie amongst each other and relationships that we can build, because we can usually reach out and talk with different people, even during the Sunday service, before or after. But we build this off of the core value that we talked about, that we believe that relationships have the ability to transform a person. And, what we want to do is we build upon, Element Next. We're introducing somebody to Christ. Somebody comes to Christ. But in the step of a believer, there has to be a point in time when, you do what God has called us to do, which is to become a disciple, right? And each person that's a follower of Christ has to become a disciple and then has to make disciples. You have to disciple yourself, other people, and show them who Christ is and lead them on their journey. And that's done through relationships. There's no other real way to do that. You have to have a relationship with somebody in order to disciple them, right? I mean, I had to have a relationship with somebody that discipled me, that brought me along. And, God gives us in his word, too, in Romans 10, starting in verse 23. Let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. And let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds, not forsaking our own assembling together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day drawing near. So, God calls us into relationships. Think about it. Our whole faith journey begins with a walk that's a relationship with Jesus Christ. It's all about relationships. That's what God created us for, to be in relationship with him through his son, Jesus Christ. And so life groups is an extension of that. Meeting on Sunday is great and is all well and good, but God calls us to be together so that we can stimulate each other to move forward, to grow in faith. And I can tell you from my Wednesday night life group, I have several people here, that come to that Wednesday night life group that are here right now. And our conversation is Jesus, obviously. And we focus on growing in our relationship with the Lord, and also in growing in our relationship with one another, because there's going to be times in every one of our lives when we go through hardships, trials, sadness, issues. It doesn't matter what it is. Things may be going on in the world. Something may be disturbing you. And you have somebody who can come behind you, around you, walk with you, because we are the hands and the feet of Jesus Christ. And so, a life group is just that. It is a life group. It's an extension of your life with Jesus Christ, and it's an extension of the family of Jesus Christ. A life group, I cannot stress how important it is to be a part of a life group, to grow in your relationship with Jesus Christ, personally grow, and then to be able to go out and to do that with other people. If you know somebody that's not in a life group, invite them. Invite them to a life group. It's important to be around other believers other than just Sunday. It's important to grow that relationship with other people. I have a strong heart for this because I love people, and I love to see people grow, and I have seen people change and grow in this little life group experience. I've seen God touch and move in the hearts of people, and I feel blessed to be able to be a part of it. And I think each one of us has to be a part of it in one way or the other. Whether you're in a life group, direct somebody to a life group. Do that. It's really important to us, guys.
Yeah.
All right?
I'm often blessed by your leftover chips.
Oh, good. Well, we're happy you're enjoying those then.
And so obviously life groups are going to be continue to be a big focus of what we do. Our life groups, you guys have probably noticed this already, but they move around the school year. So we have fall, we have spring, we have summer. There's a few weeks of breaks between those times, just to give a little bit of time for people, because usually those breaks go around like school starting. So most families are super busy, so it's a few weeks off. I know the under 40 life group, during that break, we're actually going to have some kind of a party in the middle of it just for fun. But be thinking about who you can invite. And one of our goals is as the church grows through this next season, is looking at how can we add one or two more life groups in different neighborhoods in our areas. So that also means that we need more life group leaders. So as you guys are going to your life groups, if you think, oh man, this might be something I'd be interested in doing, well, it's easy to be an assistant life group leader to find out if that's something that you really want to do. So you can always talk to your life group leader and say, hey, how can I help? How can I be a part of that? Because I feel like it might be something I want to do in the future. So life groups are another one of the things that we do here at Element Church. Tim, how did I go through weekend services and not have you talk about kids ministry? Why didn't you hit me in the shoulder? Because that's really where it was supposed to be. We'll talk about you doing Element teams. So that's next. We do life groups. We do teams as a church. So Tim, this seems like a great time for you to talk about the Element Kids team.
This is the original plan, actually.
This is exactly what we planned.
According to schedule. So Element Kids has definitely been in a season of change. I know we had Peter leave and everything else. We also had Craig just do a phenomenal job making sure that it was all completely held together, and we had Nancy in preschool and everything else. And as a church, we really just came together. And now I've been called, and I've been given the opportunity and the blessing to be able to work with the kids. So over the next 6 months, it's going to be fun to see how we can build this ministry out. Right now, we don't have that many kids. I know I would love to see so many kids here that we force Eric to buy a new building. That would just be
glory.
That would just be wonderful.
Y'all got more faith than me.
But there's just so many things, so many core values that we go through with our kids. We talk about giving God our best. We talk about, and right now we have this season of change, and we have to be okay with that change. And a lot of things when we pray about this is we are empowering these kids, and we're saying that we are empowering these kids with God's Spirit for His mission. And a lot of things that people have told me, like the lesson plans that we send kids home with, they're actually doing them with their kids, and that's what I love to see, and that's what I'm really excited for. In Deuteronomy 6, there's a verse 5 through I think 7 or 8. It starts with, Jesus quotes this later in the New Testament. He says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road and when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorframes of your houses and on your gates." So it's just so exciting to see these kids are taking these things home. And it's something we really want to work on the next 6 months to encourage, because we focus on the weekend services. That's something that we can do. We can focus on getting to the kids when they're here. But if they are taking us home, we can work with the parents and everything else to not only just bring them here, to go through this stuff with them. There's games and stuff that even reinforce the ideas that we're getting here. And I'm really excited to see that it's already working and these kids are already being affected. So I kind of want to build that out over the next 6 months. And we obviously have a wonderful project downstairs, and that is going to be some of this 6 months. And I think that, again, we have to be comfortable with change and be ready for the challenge that God is giving us. And hopefully we'll have a bit of a new thing for the kids to see whenever they come back. And I don't know, I'm just excited. It's great.
That's super exciting. And, it's definitely, it's getting all the kids ministry here on site has been a journey. But it's a journey that hopefully we'll resolved here pretty soon, and one that's ultimately really good for the church. And I appreciate that Tim's coming on board, and that he's really embracing the idea of family life pastor, Tim's not just a pastor to kids, but it's the idea of how do we empower families to grow in their faith and to grow together in their faith. So that's one of our team, and also I think it definitely deserves a shout out to Nancy while she's here for doing such an amazing job with our preschool through some difficult times. It is an extreme challenge to have the preschool and the nursery and the element kids all in the same room, but it was a worthwhile thing to do. It was one of those things where I've had multiple parents come to me who were so grateful that there was nothing for their kids who were preschool and younger. And even though it was a challenge for the leaders to do it, that challenge really blessed some families in our church and enabled them to be at church who weren't able to before. And so I'm really grateful for that. And then we're a team-based church. So what that means is that we believe that God has gifted everyone to do the ministry of the church. And it's easy to say that, and it's harder to do it on a day-to-day basis, right? But that's why we're constantly saying, hey, how can different people serve in different places? That's honestly, we talk about some of the things that the people will come to me with ideas. Sometimes I'll tell people no, because their idea is that Erik does it. And I need more stuff to do. No, I do not. I don't need more stuff to do at all. Oftentimes people say, and I'll say, hey, were you wanting to do that? And they'll say, well, no. I'll say, okay, well, then maybe we're going to have to wait till we have someone who wants to do that. But it's the same thing that I've actually, it's something I've been real clear about. Both these guys are on staff, but they're very part-time. And I've been also very clear with them that if people are once you're on staff, sometimes people come to you with their brilliant plans that they want somebody else to do. And I've already given them full permission to say, hey, is that something you wanted to do? Oh, okay, well, then that's all right. It's not, because we're a team-based church. We're not a staff-based church. We have staff, but that's not how we do ministry. We do ministry by empowering you guys to do what Jesus put you on earth to do. And so we're going to continue to grow our teams. We really could use, in the next 6 months, we need at least 2 more team leaders. About 8 of the team's team leader is me. So we need to continue to add team leaders to different teams so that we're giving that ministry out throughout the church. We also would like to see at least 10 people who aren't serving at all begin to serve. And some of the ways that happens, again, is not even, I can do so much. We can talk till we're blue from the stage. But if you're passionate about your team and you go up to someone who you know is not serving and be like, hey, you smile all the time. You should be a greeter. When you guys believe in someone and you reach out to them and invite them to be a part of your team, that does things that I'll never be able to do from the stage. So I would challenge you in that as we're looking to add new team leaders and at least 10 people who aren't serving to where they are serving in the next 6 months. So our triangle's getting pretty full, right? I think that's... So these are the things that we do as a church. And there's only one point of that. It's fully devoted followers of Jesus. We're doing these things so that we take people from being guests who have walked, who knows how they found our church. Maybe they Googled our church. Maybe they walked by and they saw that we have service at 10:30 and they thought, oh, my mama would really like it if I went to church. Maybe they went to one of our events. Who knows how. People end up at our church a lot of different ways. But our goal is to have an intentional plan on how we take those people from just wandering into our church to being fully devoted to following Jesus. Because we believe that following Jesus, he's the way, he's the truth, he's the life. No one comes to God except through Jesus. And in that, living a life for Jesus is the way we were meant to live. It's the way that we're truly alive. So how do we get people to that point? People who are fully devoted, they're devoted with their time, their talent, and their treasures. And so we're going to continue as we go through the next 6 months. We're going to do a meeting like this once a quarter, where it's an opportunity for us in the church to sit down and talk about what we have going on and what we're doing as a church. But I just want to, as we go through, this is kind of how we work as a church. This is what we do, and that's the point. There's a lot of good things that churches can do. There are. But for Element Church in this season, this is what we do. If it's not in that, I'm going to tell people no. And I have a lot of people that come in with passionate about what they're doing or passionate about an idea, and sometimes it fits into what we do. Oftentimes I go, oh, that'd make a great life group. But as a church that's trying to reach our community and trying to grow, it's very easy to try to do too much. You can get scattered. Your focus can scatter out because there's lots of good things that you can be doing. But we're going to take, instead of doing just a lot of good things, we're going to really say, this is what God wants us to do, and these are the best things for our church to be doing right now. And that's what we're going to do so that we can see people be fully devoted followers of Jesus, so that ultimately we can fulfill the point of what Elements here, which is to be a growing church that's reaching out into not just Millvale, but multiple neighborhoods here in Pittsburgh. Does that cover everything we wanted to chat about, gentlemen?
Constantly want people to be cycling down the funnel,
Right.
but that's about it.
Yeah. And yeah, so that's the point. And we were at a staff meeting, we were talking about, and it's kind of interesting, and it's not 7:15 yet, so I can still talk more. One of the things, there's people in different stages of spiritual growth in the church, right? John talks about this in his letter, where he says, you've got babies, you've got young men, and you've got fathers. And I think he used masculine language, but I think that applies. You've got babies, young ladies, and then you have mothers as well. And really in a church, you've got people at 4 stages of spiritual growth. You've got unbelievers. You have people who, maybe they believe in God, but they don't know anything about Jesus, or you've got people in your church that's an atheist. You don't know who's going to show up, but people who are not followers of Jesus. You have people who are, but are spiritual babies. They're still drinking milk. Really, they're at church to get. Spiritual babies are at church to get. Problem is, sometimes at church you get some really big babies. They've been babies for a long time. So we don't want people to stay there. We want people to go on to that next step where they're in spiritual growth. Usually that means they've given people who have gone from being spiritual babies to young men, young women, have taken 1 or 2 of those T's. So I give my time, I give my talent, but I don't give my treasure. I give my treasure, but I don't give my time. But we want to keep pushing people through till they're fully devoted followers of Jesus. And that's what as we take people through this, that's how this is kind of intentionally meant, so that as they go through the steps, it's easier and easier to get discipled to a point where you're going to where you need to be as a fully devoted follower of Jesus.
One thing I liked about the funnel is Tim mentioned this, you're constantly cycling through it. Just because you may have gone through all the classes and you've done the life groups and stuff, now it's your turn to maybe lead a life group, or when you plug back in, instead of just being part of a team, now it's your turn to step up and lead a team. Right. It's constantly changing your role within the church, because as we grow and as we continue with, the dream is for us to continue to grow and plant. We're going to need team members, and we're going to need people constantly going through that, constantly growing, constantly changing as we need more leadership.
Right. Absolutely.
I would add to that too, because one of the things I've seen being in this community now for as long as I've been here, and you being in Lawrenceville, seeing the same types of things, what I see cycle through Element in the area that we happen to be in a lot of times, we do happen to attract a lot of people, a lot of times that are lost, that have gone down the wrong road, and they may be living in darkness. I see people here that are struggling with things, being straight up with alcohol and drug abuse, and you'll have a lot of people that are really in a dark place and depressed and down. There's so many different things. We all as humans will suffer these things, but sometimes being in a community like this, it opens up your eyes to a little bit more of it. And the reality that I've seen over all these years, because I've seen a lot of people come through our doors over the years, and if the transformation part doesn't happen, if they don't plug in and they don't get transformed by Jesus Christ being in their lives, then they will fall back into the same places that they've been before. And I have seen it over and over and over again. And I can never impress enough. You know, for me, I take it to heart so that when I see these people, I engage them. You guys all know, you see me engage with almost everybody in this place as much as I humanly can, because it's important to me to get a word into somebody, because you don't know when you might make a difference in somebody's life by a simple hello, by a simple hug, by any little thing that you do to reach out to somebody. Yeah. And you know, a little event, you know, that occurred and really got me thinking, and a lot of you guys already know it, but you guys have heard about the fire on the north side where the 2 children died this past week. And you know, I was telling some of these guys is that the Wednesday before, the Millville movie night, the mother of those children and those 2 children, those 2 boys, were there. And I was specifically introduced to them, and I had time to stand and talk with them a little bit, and with the mother. And then to just have several days later to have them die. And I've seen this happen with other people that we've been introduced to in this church who have passed since we've known them. And the one thing that impressed on me and that I want to impress on you guys is take the time to reach out and talk to somebody as a friend, as a follower of Christ in love, to share the love of Jesus, the good news, because you don't know if it's going to be the last time they get to hear that. It's so important. Yeah. And the way that we get to that place where we do this naturally is to become fully devoted followers of Christ, disciples of Jesus Christ. We need to live what we're reading and what we're hearing, not just listen to it. Be ye doers of the word, not hearers only, Jesus tells us. That's where we need to be, guys. And you got to take it to heart. And the only way you do that, and the only way you're going to see transformation in a person's life is if they go through that. Yeah. And that's what we need to be, is that spark.
Right. Everyone's a shepherd. I mean, it goes back to that. Like we talk with the idea of these different teams. And I think we all have to think about that and when we get here on Sundays. It's really easy. Sunday's busy, especially all of us. We're all on teams, you know, is to always evaluate what we're doing and then realize I'm a shepherd. You know, God wants me to do ministry at church today. What is it? And to constantly be thinking, how do I take? It's so easy to get caught up. But how do I take that focus and how do I put it back to if I'm a shepherd, who am I supposed to be shepherding right now? And sometimes that's people who are very far from God. Sometimes that's people who are also fully devoted followers of Jesus, but need someone. There's a crisis, and they need someone to care about them that day. I like it. Tim, would you close us out with a word of prayer, please?
Father God, we just want to come before you right now, and first of all, just thank you for this wonderful church that we have and this family that we come together every week, and we just celebrate each other and the life that you've given us, God. And we just pray your blessing and grace and peace over the next 6 months here, that your spirit would flow through all of us, and we just would have a vision of the things that you want for this church, God. And we know that you have a great plan in store, that you're going to work through us to affect the city of Millville in just so many ways, God. We thank you for bringing all of us here tonight, and that we would all leave refreshed both in body and in spirit, God. And we thank you for this opportunity that you've given us to just reach out and love on the city, God. We just thank you for all these things in your name. Amen.
Thank you all for coming.